Hello, I am Dr. Maria Shiril Amero, a practicing obstetrician and gynecologist from Cebu City and founder of the Our Lady of Guadalupe Natural Family Planning Center, Philippines. I am 33 years old, happily married for 10 years, and a mother of 3 lovely kids. I grew up in a typical religious Filipino family, basically born as a Catholic. My bedtime stories were not of Cinderella or Snow White. It was about how Abraham was willing to sacrifice his own son Isaac. It was about Joseph, who was sold by his own brothers and was brought to Egypt. It was about the rich Job, who lost almost everything and yet still trusting God. And the most exciting of all was how David defeated Goliath with just one swing. These are just a few of my favorite bedtime stories. To put it more clearly, I simply grew up a Catholic. Never have I really thought how difficult their journeys were until I had my own share of test of faith. Being an only child of both parent doctors, they raised me to be a strong, confident, and independent woman. But apart from my efforts, my parents kept reminding me that I should always pray in everything that I do. So yes, prayer became part of my early childhood until the present. But I do not do it alone. Whenever I pray, our entire family storms heavens with me. My parents have been workers of the church ever since I was young. They work as doctors from Monday to Friday, but on weekends, they bring me to the activities they lead in the church. What could possibly go wrong in a well-provided life? A turning point came when I became a licensed physician. Looking at my credentials, both academic and extracurricular, modesty aside, I should not have any difficulty getting accepted for a training slot. I was even brought to the Malacanang Palace as one of the 10 outstanding students of the Philippines, representing Central Visayas, excelling not just in academics, but also in leadership and social responsibility as a champion of upholding maternal and child health care. But what happened to me was the contrary. Late 2014, I applied for a residency training in OBGYN. Just a little background, standing by the church's teachings, I was against giving pills for contraceptions, injectables, and ligation ever since then. But aren't obstetricians the ones who prescribe pills and injections? I must be going crazy choosing that particular specialty, right? Especially that I know there is conflict between my values and the practice of the profession. But my determination to be the first Filipina OBGYN that is pro-life from the very start and not just a convert was stronger. It became my ultimate goal to improve my advocacy by training and honing skills as an obstetrician without compromising my values as a Catholic. I wanted to have the expertise and credentials to be able to defend whatever I am saying. But all my plans collapsed because my application was put on hold. During my interview, the head of the panel told me, "We'll just call you back." She meant that I had no assurance if I get accepted for the time being. Why? I don't exactly know. Probably because during the interview, I truthfully expressed that if given a chance that I would get accepted, I would beg off from performing bilateral tubal ligation. I wanted to be an open book to avoid conflict in what is expected from me and what I value as a Catholic. Considering these specialists in front of me perform ligation, their eyebrows raised and I was positioned in greater scrutiny. One panelist even asked what my religion was. They could not question my academic credentials because I graduated in high honors during medical school And I even scored highest in the entrance exam they gave. So they started questioning my belief, my upbringing, and that if I was too strict, was my stand too righteous? Have I misinterpreted the doctrines of the Catholic Church? These questions gave me sleepless nights. What if I don't get accepted? How can I help sustain my family? Ever since my husband and I got married, we were on our own. Of course, my parents help us once in a while, but if I don't get accepted, where else will I go? Should I ask Dad to help us with the finances? Of course, earning just a little more is important, especially that at that time, we had 2 kids to feed and bills to pay. Should I just bend with the practices just so I get accepted? Fear crept over me. I cried and I prayed. When I opened my Bible, a verse from Isaiah chapter 41 verse 13 greeted me saying, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, 'Do not fear, I will help you.'" It was a very humbling experience for me. Jesus knew I was struggling, and through the Bible, He spoke. He promised to help me. How? I don't know. One thing for sure, that the Bible verse gave me the strength and the answer I needed. I went ahead for my pay residency without any assurance of getting accepted, yet still determined to stand by my principles. What's more, I was tasked to assist in a cesarean section, which I learned during the operation timeout that the procedure involves a possible bilateral tubal ligation. I froze. If only I knew earlier, I could just have made an alibi to not join the team rather than creating a possible scene later. I was decided to scrub out in case the bilateral tubal ligation proceeds. Being in a developing country, all the materials the staff uses will be carried over to the patient's bill. And so if I would scrub out from the scene, her money will be wasted. And so included in my deliberation was also the possibility to pay for the gloves, the gown, and all the other things I wore inside the operating room. I also have already accepted the fact that if I scrub out of the field, it will definitely be a point against my application. And worse, it can be a reason for me not to get accepted. Again, as I stood, I prayed. I prayed hard while waiting for the surgeon to start cutting the skin. Lord, please, do not bring me to the test and deliver me. Fast forward, the baby was out, and the surgeon was ready to proceed with the bilateral tubal ligation. I was also ready to step backward to ask permission from the surgeon that I will be scrubbing out. Suddenly, the pediatric resident called for code baby blue. Our baby's oxygen level suddenly went low. Considering the possible poor outcome of the baby, the pediatrician approached the mother and advised against bilateral tubal ligation because of the bad outcome of the baby she just had delivered. I was cold and flushed at the same time. It felt like I was Abraham, ready to sacrifice my Isaac, the application I so longed for to get accepted. After the surgery, I was ready to pack my bags and maybe just go home. I almost surrendered to the fact that perhaps this is not really for me, when suddenly my phone rang. A close friend who was doing internship in another institution told me that their hospital is already accepting applicants for training in OBGYN. Then, the rest was history. There in that institution, I matured not just in my career, but also in my advocacy, values, and character. I was able to do my advocacy freely because it is the only hospital in Cebu, if not in the entire Philippines, that promotes natural family planning. No ligation, no pills, no injectables for contraception. They supported and helped me launch my own natural family planning center. Now, the Our Lady of Guadalupe Natural Family Planning Center Philippines has grown to around almost 20 core volunteers. We cater not just Cebu or Bohol, but the entire Philippines. Even during the pandemic, we have shifted all our services online through our official Facebook page, Dr. Amero Lifestyle Clinic. Sometimes, when I feel so down and tired and doubtful of the direction of my journey, I always go back to the time where I felt so afraid, lost, and confused, because it was at that lowest point in my life that my mission strengthened. Should I fight for my values, or should I just blend in? Like me, all of us, no matter what age, what profession, we will always come to a point of finding ourselves in a crossroad. Oftentimes we ask, should I go this way or that way? How did my life centered in Christ help me in my advocacy to promote openness to life? So I use the acronym CHRIST. C for choice. My Christ-centered prayer life made me commit to the yes I said several years ago. I decided to choose Him and made Him the center of this mission. But more than choosing this mission, He chose me to serve. So who am I to refuse? Next is H. H is for help. A Christ-centered prayer life allowed me to meet people with the same advocacy as I do. Meeting and learning from their testimonies helped me to grow in faith and trust that truly God never abandons His faithful people. R is for rejections. Yes, my Christ-centered prayer life made me recognize that rejections are indeed redirections. If I had pushed and bended on to what was popular 6 years ago, I might be at a different state now. I would not be speaking in front of you sharing my testimony. I is for insecurities. My Christ-centered prayer life made me recognize my weaknesses, my incapability, and shortcomings. This allowed me to fully trust God's timing and planning more, not relying merely on human efforts. Christ chose me for this mission, and no matter how inadequate I feel, believe that when the Lord calls, He equips. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 12, as the Lord responded to Moses' insecurity, He said, "Now go, I will help you. Speak and will teach you what to say." Next is S for strength. Prayers can come very routine, especially we have all the novena booklets readily available in our nearest bookstore. But for me, my prayer life gave me super strength that can only come from one source, and that is Jesus Christ. And lastly, letter T, thanksgiving. My Christ-centered prayer life taught me to become grateful in everything, whether good or bad. He does not bring people and circumstances by chance. And so in everything, I thank God. Remember, whichever road you choose, whether popular or not, always choose what is right. In a confused world like ours, only a well-grounded Christian value can lead you out of the dark tunnel. Once again, this is Dr. Amero wishing you a good day, and may God bless you abundantly.